in the forces, which allowed us like a cheaper rate to be able to go to a private school, because my dad was moving around quite a lot. So I was 9 years old when I was reading Enid Blyton and Mallory Towers and all those lovely stories. And I'd not really considered boarding school before, but having read those, I was like super excited. And a girl at my primary school, who was also military background, she said she was going to go, so I wanted to go because I thought it'd be cool. And
Yeah.
I read Enid books. So I asked to go. We went to have a look around. I went to a very small boarding school called Rossholm School in Somerset. We went to have a look around and had a tour, met the headmistress at the time, and I decided I would like to go. It all sounded very exciting. They kind of explained lots of trips they were going to do, what sort of things they did at weekends, the opportunities you would get, and it all sounded quite intriguing. So I then started in the September of 1986. I was 10 years old, just 10, and in the transition between me visiting and me starting, her daughter, the headmistress's daughter, had taken over as headmistress. She was an ex-major,
Mhm.
female major in the army, and she was the first female major to be in charge of a whole male troop at the time. And she was also married to a major. So the dynamic of the school was quite different to what I had visited previously. So I started age 10. I remember my first day. I remember I hardly said goodbye to my parents. I was so excited. I wasn't nervous. And I remember running up the stairs. My mum said she was kind of bereft because I hardly like said goodbye. Ran up the stairs. They had a big sweeping staircase in the kind of reception hall.
Mhm.
That was probably one you weren't allowed to, I didn't know this at the time, but you weren't allowed to go up those stairs. They kind of let it be shown that you were on your first day.
Yes, we had the same. It's all very grand. We had a boarding school like that, but I was like 12 or 13. I think it's 12, 1983. And yes, it was a beautiful big building with when you went in and a lovely staircase and it's all kind of
All
very
proper.
grand and exciting.
Yeah,
But it's not
absolutely.
about the building, is it?
No,
No.
no, absolutely not. So I went running up the stairs and like kind of like waved from the top and disappeared. Um, I thought I was going in for a complete adventure. It took probably 24 hours for me to realise, oh my God, what have I done? Um, I was in a dormitory with probably about 14 or 12 maybe. So there was more when I was first there. There were more pupils in my year. It's a very small school, so from a boarder's perspective, there was only a handful of children in my year. I think there was 10 in my year, like including day girls. By the time I got to fifth year, there were a few more when I was younger, but it wasn't a lot of people. And everybody was there from kind of different backgrounds. It was it was a long. I was there for 6 years. It was a long 6 years. I didn't really settle. I felt like a fish out of water. I was terribly homesick, and it the first we were I think we were allowed home, like, so the first time I went home was about 4 weeks in, something like that. I was so excited to go home, and I didn't realize at the time the going back to boarding school was going to be even worse. Having been home and at this point realizing I didn't like it, the drive back to school was a an awful experience. The days kind of leading up to going back, my behaviour would deteriorate. I'd get really grumpy and snappy, and because I was scared about going back. And the drive to school, I know exactly. It used to take us an hour and 10 minutes to get from my front door to school's front door, and I would just hold my mum's hand. I would be really upset. I'd be really quiet, and then the leaving me there, they tried to kind of like transition it really quickly, like, because we went back on a Sunday evening, and they were trying to get us in, and so that they could get us to bed as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
And I would try and drag that out as long as I possibly could because I didn't want my mum to leave. Um, But I was there for 6 years in total. The first 2 years were, I would say, the hardest. I was bullied during those first 2 years, and I think that had a big contributing factor to it. And I was so scared of these. I was 10 at the time, and they were 16. So the age gap at the time was quite considerable, and I was so scared to say anything because I was terrified of these girls. So I never told my mum. She could see my behaviour and would ask questions sometimes, but I never really expressed what was going on at school. What transpired after 2 years is the particular girl that was bullying me got caught climbing through the window with, they used to call them the VBs, which stood for Village Boys, and she got caught climbing through one of the bedroom windows with the boys, and so they had an excuse to expel her, and so she got expelled. So
Tying
I,
sheets together,
pardon?
get down. Tying
Yeah,
sheets
yeah,
together to get down.
yeah.
That's
To
yeah.
let them in, to get the boys in. That's what they used
Oh,
to
right,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I then told my mum, and I told her what had been going on and how awful it had been and some of the experiences I'd had. But she was very much like, oh, she's gone now, so you can carry on. And I think my mum had realised at this point that she thought that the experiences would do me good and that my education would, I'd get a better education there than I would have if I'd gone elsewhere. So I had to go in and bear it. I wasn't allowed to leave and I had to kind of carry on.
So
But
were there any stats, from the school provided, like results?
sorry.
Were there any results that, for her to think that would be a better opportunity for
No, and
you? No,
I don't think she even looked into any of that because
just
from a
thought it would be.
teaching perspective,
Yeah.
the teaching wasn't very good. Um, Not when I see, and I know things are different now to when I was at school anyway, but um, educationally, it wasn't outstanding. The like
No, a
what
lot of those private schools are rubbish.
Yeah, the academic wise, people, I think a lot of people have this assumption that if you go
Yeah.
to boarding school,
Then you've got the best opportunity. It's not the
yeah, and you're
case.
really well
No.
educated and you've got fantastic results, and yes, you get opportunities, and yes, you meet other people that sometimes open doorways, but
From a similar background.
yeah, but educationally, I didn't come out with a great education at all.
Yeah.
Um,
But you left at 16. Did you go somewhere decent for sixth form or?
Yeah, I did. I went back. Obviously, I went back home, and then I was always told at school that I would never amount to anything. I was really good at sport, and I was really good at drama, and I think because of those two things, that kind of saw me through.
Mhm.
My drama teacher and music teacher were fantastic, and without them, goodness knows what would have happened. But they were amazing and would fight my corner all the time. And then I was really good at sports, so I was sports captain for 2 years, and so that gave me something that I enjoyed to focus on, and I would kind of try and concentrate on that, and I'd go to lots of fixtures. Unfortunately, though, that
You're
did
lucky
result.
the sport was good. Because
Yeah.
mine, they were walking. I was offered a place or to train for the England netball team when I left my junior school, and I was going to go to the day school, and I had all the uniform and everything, and they had amazing tennis and netball, and then my stepmother took me to this school and said, "Do you want to go here?" 2 weeks before, and I went there, and I arrived, and they were walking with a ball for netball. They didn't know the rules. They were
Oh,
letting them walk with the ball. You have to.
yeah, two
But
step.
you
Yeah,
didn't even
yeah.
know the rules for netball, so I'm absolutely gutted. Yeah, so at least your sport was
Yeah,
good.
sport was quite
Huh?
good, and we used to play obviously lots of local teams, and we did quite well at sport.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that made it. It resulted in me being taken up lessons sometimes to go to fixtures, so that didn't help from an academic perspective. At the time, I thought that was great because I was missing maths or whatever, but
Yeah.
actually, I needed those lessons more than I probably needed the sport. But I did enjoy it. I won't lie, I did like enjoy the sport. Um, and then my younger sister wanted to come. I tried to persuade her not to, but she wanted to come along, and there was another discount if you had a sibling. And so for my last 2 years, she
Oh,
joined. I think her experience of boarding school is very different to mine, but I think that's a lot of because of I was there. So I was able to I was her mum, I suppose. I looked after her at school. I would go and tuck her in every night. I'd make sure she cleaned her teeth. I would like read with her, all of those kind of things. So I think her experience of boarding school was very different. She had quite a positive experience, I think. She didn't want to stay though when I left, and I refused to leave her. But my sister was much more savvy than I, and she very cleverly wrote to my dad and said she didn't like it and she wanted to leave. And he said, "Well, leave then. You don't have to stay." And I was dumbfounded because I was like, my dad was the
Never
kind
done that. You never actually asked.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He was the kind of like military um, disciplinarian in the family. My mum was the one I was really close to, and I
You'd
thought,
spoken to her. Oh, but they were together.
yeah, they were together. Dad was away quite a lot, but they still are together. But I look back and think, why did I never ask my
I
dad?
know. You
I
see,
never approached him.
I was doing the same work for 2 years at this school that I'd done from the school before. And I was so worried about it. But I don't think I ever communicated it. I don't think I ever
Yeah,
even said to my parents.
I don't know whether it's the environment that they create that makes you so nervous to say something, or whether I don't know, because I look back on it now and I'm quite like I'll stand up for myself. I'll say, I won't be taken for granted or walked over. And I don't know whether that's just the resilience from like going through that kind of experience, that you're very independent and driven and you've got a real resilience to you, or why didn't I have that then? Like why did I not feel comfortable enough to like say more back then?
Hmm.
But I think that's all kind of part of the journey, and
It's a
you
seen and
don't
not
realize.
heard thing as well, isn't it? Possibly. Were you told to be seen and not heard? I know I
Yeah, it was
was.
very much like that.
Yeah, so
Like
that's
we had to. It was very old school. We still wore the same uniform from 1886. We were still in it, so it was quite very old fashioned. Um, we had to stand up every time a door opened and an adult walked in. You had to stand up. You weren't allowed to sit down until they told you you could sit down. If somebody came in the door, an adult came in the door, the nearest person had to rush to the door and hold the door open. So it was very kind of like
on your
old,
toes.
yeah, 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 very kind of Victorian kind of um, expectations. And I have often thought, like, did I just go to a particularly bad school? There was a local school that closed down a couple of years before I left. So because of that, lots of pupils that had been to another school joined our school, and that was great because we met like suddenly there was like an influx of like new flesh, I suppose, and
Mhm.
people that you could get on with, because you did have a very limited pool of people to be friends with, and if you didn't resonate with those people, it made it even lonelier. 'Cause it's quite a lonely experience. Um, like
You didn't
nighttime.
bond with anybody at all. So
Um,
I had nice, I've always had nice friends. I always made friends
had
in my
friends,
school.
but they weren't like Beth. Like when I was younger, I had a couple of really good friends,
Mhm.
a girl called Charlotte and a girl called Roberta, but they both left when I was probably 10 or 11. So, um, and yes, I did have friends, but not like the really close friends until one of these she was a day girl, unfortunately, or
Mhm.
fortunately for her. She joined when we were about 13, 14.
Mhm.
Um, and so for the last couple of years, I was really, really good friends with her. We're still friends now. Her daughter was flower girl at my wedding.
Oh, nice.
So we've kept in touch, um, and that did make things easier. But I think I think some of the I didn't see some of the like issues that I had when you're in it. You haven't got that understanding, and even it's taken me a long time looking back and seeing how my life panned out following school, the effect that boarding school has had.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, there's something called boarding school syndrome, and that relates a lot to like the childhood trauma and the attachment issues and abandonment issues and rejection issues, and that emotional kind of confinement. And
And it's 30%, isn't it? It's about 30% reported of
yeah, there's
trauma
about seven,
within
yeah, about
boarding
seventy
school, ex-boarding
thousand
school.
children go to boarding school,
Yeah,
and about 30% of those
have reported it.
result in like
Yeah.
some kind of childhood trauma. And though, like you say, those are the ones that have reported it. There's probably many more.
Mhm.
And I think that's quite a significant number, I think, of people. It's not normal to be taken away from your family, and like you're basically thrust
It's
into
the abuse. It's not just kind of being away from home. It's the abuse that takes place, isn't it? So you had some particularly difficult things happen to you, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So I had we were like basically discipline came from the seniors a lot of the time.
Mhm.
So we had 15, 16-year-olds responsible for our discipline when we were younger. So things like licking blackboards clean, having to, like, in our dining room, we had, like, because it was a really old building, we had old-fashioned meat hooks that used to hang from the dining room ceiling, and we used to have to hang off those, and they would move the tables out the way. So literally,
Hanging from what? From your hands.
yeah, so from our hands, and then you literally have to hang on to this meat hook um, from the ceiling, and then if you fell off, and like if you fell off too quickly, you'd have to get back up, and it was all like,
On a table or
yeah, they'd move. Well, you'd stand on the table,
table table.
and then they'd move it. Yeah, so you were just like hanging there. Um, I remember having to sit down and like just stare at light bulbs until like for hours.
Yeah.
And then I remember an incident. I walked past. There was an area at my school called cages, and it was just some old like cages where you would keep like wellies and stuff like that. It's kind of like outside-ish. And I remember running past cages one day and accidentally saw some girls in there who were smoking, and I couldn't run quick enough, so I kind of just like went, and I suddenly got caught up with, grabbed by the scruff of the neck, and I was probably 10, maybe 11 at the time, and they forced me to smoke because then if I'd smoked, I couldn't tell them. So, oh, it was the most disgusting thing I've ever had, and especially at that age. I wasn't from that kind of background. My parents never smoked, so I'd never really experienced it before, and it was hideous. And then I can never really remember that one. I remember why they made me do that, but lots of my punishments I can't remember like what that was a repercussion for. Like what had I done to, I can't remember being
Mhm.
naughty. I remember trying to be on my best behaviour all the time because I thought it's a bit like the abuse cycle. Like if you're really, really good, they won't hurt me. Kind of that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I can't really remember things that I did. I don't know if that's because I blocked it out, or I don't know whether that's because there really wasn't anything. I'm not. I can't recall that, to be honest.
I remember having a pillow fight and then having to clean all the shoes of the entire school and wait till the headmistress wait outside her office until she went to bed, which seemed really late, and then get up really early and then pick up rubbish from the grounds. And I think I had to go for a run or something very early in the morning.
I had an experience once where my sister was there at the time, and I went down to their bedroom in the evening to like put them to bed, and they were having an orange peel fight in the bedroom. And I walked in and basically said, right, you need to stop that. It's bedtime, blah, blah, blah. And then the head walked in behind us, caught them all having a fight, blamed me because at this point I was a senior. I tried to say, but you were just shut down. You weren't allowed to speak. So, as a punishment, me and my sister, um, we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we had an old croquet lawn, and we had to get, the big like roller, like the
Yeah.
like metal. We had to roll the croquet lawn back and forth for an hour, and then we had a long drive that went up to our school, and it
Yeah.
had beautiful blossom trees all along the drive,
Yeah.
and we had to sweep the drive from the beginning to the like right up, but you would like go 10 feet and you turn around and it was all falling down behind you already. And I remember it was because it was so early. I remember the two of us cradling, I was cradling my sister in my arms in like the base of a tree where we'd fallen asleep, and we got caught by the head's husband, and then we were made to do the same punishment again for like another week, whatever. But I remember my mum used to drive into school and she used to say, oh, I just love this drive. The trees are so beautiful. And we would be like, oh, we absolutely, because we hated the trees because it was meant that like we had to clean them up.
Oh.
But there were a lot of those kind of punishments. And then I remember one day having to, we had a tour, it was a 3-story old Victorian building.
Mhm.
And
Sounds
I
just like ours.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are. Uh, um, I had to climb outside. It was winter. I was in a nightie, getting ready to go to bed, and I had to climb out of this bedroom window on a third floor. It had this tiny, like window ledge on the outside, and I had to sit there cross-legged on this window ledge in my nightie, and then they closed the window behind me and shut the curtains, and it was absolutely freezing, and I had to sit out there until I was allowed back in. And every time I knocked on the window, they would extend it. And I can't remember how it might have been 20 minutes. I don't know, but to me, it felt it was hours. And it was freezing cold. I had no idea why I was put out there.
And
But
high up, and it's a bit scary as well. Just thinks,
yeah, absolutely. And it was dark and it was winter and it wasn't very
oh,
nice. And I think I I'm not scared of heights now, but I'm very nervous about being on edges. I don't like the edges of things, and I think that's where it comes from.
mhm.
Because I can't think of any other kind of experience where I was scared that would lead me to be scared of heights.
Mhm.
But there was lots of things like that. Um, Lots of kind of like looking back, the the kind of like just a real sad. There's a real sadness
Yeah,
around like when I think about my time at school.
yeah, and not being pushed academically, and not having the the
Not
opportunity for decent teachers, and you'll know that you're kind of being wasted, and it's a horrible kind of feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and especially when you're told you won't kind of amount to. I remember we did work experience, and I wanted to go and do my work experience in like a forensic lab, and I was told absolutely no way. Ross Home girls don't do jobs like that, and I was just like, we're the headmistress was a major in the army. Like, what do you mean, Ross Home girls? That's what they should have been kind of like pushing. Like, look what you could achieve as a woman. You can go into kind of any industry, that kind of ethos. But it wasn't. It was just. It was a very, very backward thinking
Yeah.
environment.
And the most shocking thing you told me about the older girls you were saying made you watch.
Oh yeah. So yeah, one of when I was 10, um, they were in a bedroom. Their bedroom was called bedroom 14. I think I was in bedroom 10. Bedroom 14, I remember like vividly, because of what happened. But me and another girl. It was when I'd first started. So I was, I don't know, 10 and a half maybe. I wasn't very old. And I remember how old I was because Charlotte was still there. So Charlotte was my best friend when I first started, and she didn't make a whole year.
Mhm.
So it was within my first year, and it was me and her that were got out of bed in the middle of the night, and we were walked down to this bedroom 14, which is the bedroom that the seniors had.
Mhm.
And we were forced to stand in the middle of the room and watch them have sex. So the seniors had brought in the village boys
This is, oh, right, okay.
into their dormitory, and we had to stand and watch them have sex. And like, because it was things like that, that I've since told my mum, and she's like, "Why didn't you tell us?" And I was like, "Because we were absolutely terrified. Like they were in control. The seniors were like in control of the school. They ran the discipline and stuff. And my life would have been hell if I'd gone to the headmistress and said something or reported it to my mum and then she'd had a word with the headmistress. My life wouldn't have been worth living at school. And I don't think people can understand that. It's bad enough, I think, being bullied when you're going to like a state school, but you go home every night. But living there permanently and being in that environment, there is no let up. And I suppose it's similar nowadays to like social media, so they can get at you whether you're at school or not. So it was very much like that. There was no place to hide.
No real abuse from the teachers. I mean, some of these other horrific stories. I had a boyfriend when I went to Newcastle Uni, who'd been to Gordonstone and had been expelled because they didn't believe him that a master had, sexually, um, meddled with him
Yeah,
while he was ill on a barge boat. He'd stayed home, kind of, because he was ill, and then he was abused. And he reported it to his parents. Parents didn't believe him because it was Gordonstoun where Prince Charles went.
that couldn't
And then
possibly.
he went to a state school and had his head flushed down the toilet, and because he was posh.
Yeah,
But yeah, but you hear some awful stories, don't you,
yeah. Well,
about the actual
I had my head flushed
sexual
down the
abuse.
toilet when I was at boarding school. We had to bath together as well. So
Mm.
like we had to have two to a bath, and to save water, another two had to get in. And it didn't matter how old you were. So there were girls obviously that were in puberty and had started periods and all sorts of things, when we had to like bath together. I'd say things like that now. My kids are like mortified. They were like, "Oh my God, that's disgusting," and I was like, "Well, it was all to save water and
Well, it
mum."
is.
That's what that was about. Um, so,
What about the food? Was that any good?
oh, food was horrible. Well, I don't know. We had the same food on the same days
Oh yeah,
of the
Houston.
week for six
Oh,
years. So there
no.
are certain foods I can't abide and I can't touch because it just reminds me of boarding school and just the same kind of thing. And then like during the day, food wasn't too bad because we had a cook.
Yeah,
The evenings we had to cook.
really? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
so we had to cook the meals, and then you had washing up teams. So you would be in like one of them. So we were responsible for cooking the meals, and I used to do Tuesdays, which was spaghetti bolognese. So I can make a mean spaghetti bolognese, but I don't like it because I had to make it for so many years.
Oh my
But
God.
so yeah, the food wasn't great because of things like that. And I remember a story. There was a poor girl. She was a day girl, and it was autumn, and she brought a pumpkin in for the borders because she thought she was doing a nice thing, and she brought a big pumpkin in, and she said, "Oh, you can make pumpkin pie or whatever." And whoever made the pumpkin pie, I can't remember, but whoever made the pumpkin pie, it was disgusting. Put it
Didn't
that way.
take the middle out.
Oh, it was. I don't know what.
Seeds.
I don't know what they did, but it was awful. And we all sat there and we were all like, this is horrible. And then some of the girls accidentally on purpose, like would knock water into it or would put salt on or anything like that. And they go, oh, I can't eat it. And we were all made to sit there. You weren't allowed to leave till it was finished.
Wow.
And so there were and there were times where you would sit there for like all day, and punishments. I remember we had a pantry, which is like the larder basically for part of like the kitchen produce, and they used to occasionally. So when we played like sports against other teams, we'd have like orange segments or like coconut macaroons or something like that, and somebody had stolen a coconut macaroon, and we had to sit in silence all weekend on the long tables at school until somebody owned up, and then they would take us one by one into the headmistress's
Oh,
office.
for God's sake.
They would interrogate us, and nobody that particular incident, nobody owned up to that. But I do. There were other instances over the time I was there.
Crunch ball type thing, isn't it? With a
Yeah,
chocolate cake.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely like that. But there were times where somebody owned up because they said, "We'll just get out of here quicker if I own up. I'll take the punishment," and they hadn't done it.
Mhm.
But you just kind of like learn that we are either going to sit here all weekend or somebody owns up and we get out of here much quicker. But so there was lots of that kind of stuff. And then leaving school,
And then TV, were you allowed to watch TV? Because we were allowed once a week, I think.
when I first,
Like it's Top of the Pops on Thursday nights, that was it. I was a
okay,
weekly boarder, and then for sixth form, I went to boarding school in Malvern, which was great fun actually. Because when you get to that age, it is, isn't it?
yeah, it's different.
You're too young.
Yeah, yeah, it is like 9, 10 is just like
Yeah.
yeah. Some children
My
go.
sister was 8 actually,
Yeah,
and
my
my
sister was
brother
nine.
was 5. My father was 5.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
that's
I
just
mean it's way too young.
you're still
I think
developing.
that's about 2% now. I think that happens kind of within the independent schools. 2% of the young of the
Of
boarders
that young at
are
the
that
moment.
young, and then it
Yeah,
goes
see,
up
because that's
to 23% for sixth form, the
it's
boarders.
terribly young, too young, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, leaving school was I loved leaving school. It was like, and I was really pleased that. One of the things you did mention earlier was about adult abuse. We had one male teacher while I was there, and he was got rid of. I was too young, I think, to know what really was going on, but he was got rid of for being inappropriate with some of the older girls. But I don't know the details of it. So he disappeared very quickly. And then there was an incident with the head's husband, where we had to line up outside because during the day our dining room wasn't big enough for everybody to eat, so you had to kind of like take turns. The first lot would go in and have the first sitting, and then as they left, one person, the next
Yeah.
person could go in. So there was often a queue outside the dining hall, and I was in the dining hall at the time, and my sister was in the queue outside, and she got to the front of the queue, and she opened the door. Somebody came out, so she was just going in, and the headmaster's husband, Major Webb, he was called. He came in and accused her of jumping the queue and going from the back of the queue to the front of the queue, and she said, "I haven't." And because she answered him back, he was in his tennis outfit at the time, and he raised his racket, and I don't know whether he would have done anything. And I stood up, like went into like defense mode. The bench like fell back. I never even. I don't think I even said anything. I don't think I had to because everything stopped. And but he then continued to yell at her and then made her go to the back of the queue. It was like he was going to hit. He was looked like he was going to hit her. But other than that, not that I can't. There was not that I'm aware of. Not when I was there. There might have been during other periods of time, but not during my period of time with the adults that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so they're just basically treating how they were treated. It's just
Yeah,
how it works, isn't it? It's
and
just,
we were. I must say, like my time there, we were very much treated like squaddies.
yeah.
It was very military. Like even like the going, we used to go frog marching, and like we lived at a bottom. Like the school was built at the bottom of a big hill that was called Brent Knoll,
Mhm.
and we used to have to like basically run up that and you'd get a mint imperial as your as your reward. But it was very yeah, it was very kind of
Expensive.
military.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That kind of side of it. And then it was like leaving school. My sister obviously left with me. I went on to like further education and started to do things that like realized I was good at things, educationally. I was good at things
Mhm.
and I wasn't stupid and all that kind of stuff. And and it wasn't until like I got into my kind of twenties, late teens, twenties, because I went to an all girls boarding school, so I didn't know how to relate to boys at all. I felt very awkward and uncomfortable around boys. Didn't know like I remember going. Remember in my last few weeks of, or it might have been my last summer, so I'd actually just left. One of the girls that I was friends with at school, her parents were separated, and her dad lived in Spain, and her mum was in England, and she invited me to Spain with her for a week. She was going for 2 weeks, and I went out to stay with her for a week. And this was like the first freedom I'd ever really had. And we were able to walk down to like she lived near Javier, and we were able to walk down into the town and stuff, and we met like these Spanish boys, and we I remember going like meeting and she was like, "He really likes you," and I was like, "I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say. I've never kissed her." All these kind of like what 16-year-old girl I was at the time, just did not
I
know how to
I
relate
did the
at all.
same when I was 16. I kind of left that school and then I went to Switzerland for a
Yeah,
month to learn French and play tennis and ski and stuff. And it was all, I think, well, I was hanging out with some Spanish girls. And then we used to go like sneak out, put the pillows down our bed and sneak out and go to Gestard and like dance and go out clubbing with all these boys and then
yeah,
come back. It's like an hour away, drive away,
yeah.
and then go back and yeah, did that quite a lot over that month. Very
Oh,
naughty, but
right.
a whole new experience
Yeah,
of,
yeah. It was
of
very eye
yeah.
opening
Yeah.
because I think when you've been in like well, just an all girls school for any kind of period of time, and then suddenly you were released, and it was just like released.
Just not used to them.
No, and I just didn't know how to relate, didn't know how to interact, and that then like that basically transpired in me making really terrible decisions on the male front because I completely misunderstood. Um, I think because of being at boarding school, uh, I missed out. Like I had kind of like obviously abandonment issues, but like attachment kind of issues. So I would like fall in love with the like anybody who showed me any attention whatsoever. I mistook for love to start with, and I would fall head over heels with these
Oh,
like
completely, yes. I mean, your first love is meant to be very strong anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, but I would do
But
that with like any, but like it
yeah,
was very quick and very kind of like I was very emotionally attached very, very quickly, and I think it's because I completely misunderstood like attraction for love, and I got myself sometimes into situations that I didn't necessarily want to be in, and then suddenly I'd be in these situations, and I just misread all the things. I just didn't understand the rules.
Mhm.
Um, And when I look back, I suppose I had quite a promiscuous, like late teens and early 20s, because I was searching for something that meant something, but I misunderstood, I had just misunderstood how it worked because it was like I hadn't been given the handbook and everybody else knew what they were doing and I didn't.
Mhm.
And and I think that very much comes from being in an all girls school, not taught how to interact or relate.
Yes, it's not real life, is it? I
No, not at
think
all.
mixed schools much better. My
And I
boys
think,
go to mixed state schools. That's proper real life.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think you just when I think about we were when I think about the life skills I came out with a lot of life skills. I knew how to cook and I knew how to sew and I knew how to, look after myself and I was very independent and all of those kind of
Make a
things.
bed,
Yeah, I can make a bed and do like I
fold
know
the
what
sides,
yeah, I can do
no
all
water in the other sheet, so it's all completely useless.
yeah, yeah, all of those things. But like if I mentioned like a counterpane to like any like my children, they have no idea what it is. We used to have to take our quilts off every morning. You weren't allowed to leave your quilts on the bed. So your quilt came off every morning, and then you had to like make it the sheets, and then do the hospital corners, and then you had to put a counterpane over the top so that all the beds looked exactly the same if anybody came
Mhm.
in. And then we had there was a corridor at boarding school where all the quilts were stacked every morning, and then they would all be given out again every evening when we went to bed. Like just like some of the things that you just think, what a waste of time. Why
Well,
didn't you put the counterpane over the quilt?
pointless.
Yeah, so that the beds would still have looked the same, but you could have just put it over the quilt. I just didn't get it. Like all these like silly little things, I suppose. But I didn't come out with life skills of like didn't know how to handle money. I didn't know.
Right.
Um, I didn't so many things that we weren't taught. Didn't know how to relate to people. I can talk to anybody, like from all sorts of walks of life now, and
Yeah, psychology should be a mainstream subject, really.
yeah, well, yeah, it should,
Really.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and it's like interesting. It's been interesting, kind of going on a healing journey, I suppose, of like why I do the certain things I do and why I behave. I had no control at all at school. There was a routine, you had to follow the rules, you had to be in a place by a certain time, lessons were at these times, lunch was everything was organized for you. There wasn't a lot of choice. So even like you'd have your school day, and then you would have a bit of free time, and then it was dinner, or you'd be in cooking dinner. Then it was like packing it all away and washing up. Then you had prep, and then
Mhm.
it was bedtime. And and then on the weekend, Saturday morning was I think we had prep on Saturday mornings, and then Sunday mornings was letter writing. So we would sit in
They check
like
the letters as well, so you can't say too much.
well, I can't remember them ever being kind of like vetted or like
I remember having the felt tips and doing each line in a different colour,
oh yeah,
or
yeah.
each word in a different colour.
So
But
yours
they'd
was
check the letters.
I was going to say,
You
so
couldn't say too
did they
much.
redact anything, or they just would not send it?
I don't know. I mean, I think they used I mean, my family used to get them, but I was only a weekly boarder anyway. But then I'd go alternate weeks to my dad, to my mum. So really, I saw them every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember the
So I
letter
have heard of other
writing.
schools where like their letters were really censored. I think I'm not aware of any evidence that I'd heard of that happened at my school, but we were all very careful about what we wrote anyway.
Hmm.
I think because of just in case or what if they look.
He didn't
So
really
you did.
speak on the phone.
We were allowed phone calls, but you were allowed 4 minutes each. So sometimes, and it was only between a set time. I think it was between 4 and 7. And obviously there was quite a few people to get through. and it was only like an incoming line. You couldn't ring out. We weren't allowed to ring out. You had to wait for your family to ring.
You had a set
And
time for them to ring.
yeah, between that time
Mm.
and my mum sometimes would spend like a couple of hours trying to get through because the
Oh,
phone would permanently be engaged because somebody else's mum
yeah.
had got first. And
So that was
again,
bad. They should have set the times, given you a time each,
yeah, we didn't have that. It
maybe
was
10
just
minutes or something.
yeah, you had four. You
Oh,
were allowed to talk for four
right.
minutes. Obviously, some girls would go over, so you'd be like even like as pupils, we'd monitor at time because you were like, you need to get off the phone because you were waiting for your phone call. And there were times where I would be sitting outside the door to the where the little telephone was,
You
and
never have a call.
7 o'clock would come, and I'd be gutted because I'd missed my opportunity.
Mm.
Um, and obviously those phone calls made such a difference, and you kind of would wait desperately
Mum
for.
used to send postcards. I used to get quite a few little postcards.
Yeah, my mum used to write, and my dad would write when he was away, and sometimes you would get a tuck parcel. So there were certain girls, I was always envious of some of the girls at school because their mums would send them parcels all the time and they'd get these amazing like tuck parcels. And my mum didn't send them quite as often as others, but I mean, I used to get them and I used to love getting mail or parcels or
I was
anything like
doing
that.
it
It
last
was like,
year for Jack when he was at university every week. I'd send him some chocolate from Amazon or something.
and that was like my only interaction with the outside world
Yeah.
because we weren't allowed to watch TV because you said you watched TV. When I first started, we were allowed to watch TV. I think we were only allowed to watch it at set times, um, and we like sometimes on a weekend, all the boarders would get together and we'd watch like a film or something like that. And then we did a play one day about EastEnders. So we had been watching EastEnders, and then we did this play for the head, and after that we weren't allowed to watch it because whatever I think because we'd obviously put on this play like
Yeah.
demonstrating like what goes on in EastEnders, they were like, "That's highly inappropriate for you to be watching."
With
So
swearing.
we weren't watching anymore, so we kind of like ruined it for ourselves to some extent.
I was in a play. Oh God, we did a play, and I can't remember what it was. I was a maid. I think it was My Fair Lady or something.
Yeah, yeah.
My stepmother was on the front row, and she was just pissing herself laughing. It was a bit mean, I thought.
Mortifying for you, yeah.
Yeah, it's mortifying. She just couldn't stop laughing. Um,
I used to love the
yes.
play. That was like where I kind of I loved being on stage and I loved kind of being somebody else.
Mhm.
Um, like assuming a character and then becoming somebody else for a while. I used to love doing it,
Mhm.
and I was fortunate enough to end up with some quite good parts in the plays we did. But I loved being on stage. And they did do it very well. Like you would have rehearsals. You'd have to go through the whole audition like
Mhm.
period, and then you'd have rehearsals. Like so, basically the whole autumn term was about the play. The play was generally at the beginning of December at Weston-super-Mare Playhouse, so you were on a proper stage
Oh
in a
wow.
proper theatre, and you would
Wow.
have downstairs. You'd have like the whole makeup department and costumes and all, and it was like for me, this was like it was magical. This
Right.
whole experience, like we'd get a coach to Weston-super-Mare, and the whole build up to it, where you would go and have you like try on your costumes, or they'd measure you for costumes. I loved the whole thing.
Mhm.
And then you would have like professional makeup done like for the play. It was very, very professional. Like they would professionally put it on. You would have to run like all the time. You rehearsed every week for weeks. But I used to love it. But again, like there are so many times we were taken out of lessons to go and rehearse the play, or right, we need, this group of people to go and rehearse this scene, and you'd just be taken out of your lesson, and there was lots of that. But
Right.
I did
So
enjoy it.
did your O levels? Did you do O levels and or GCSEs?
I did GCSEs. I think
Okay.
I was right at the beginning of the
Yeah.
kind of GCSEs, but I only came away with five GCSEs from school, which you know
Yeah, I
was
had eight, and they were all like a B, and then all the rest was C's, and it's like we weren't pushed. It was just, and
I had
then
an A in drama, a B in art, and then the rest of mine were C's, and then I like a few of them were like D's, and I had it. I think I got an E in French. I never
mhm.
got French, but yeah, what you weren't, you just weren't.
Yeah,
Well,
so
but I think, and it's weird because I think about, because I was good at sport, they utilised that quite a lot because that would, they could promote that as like it was good for the school's reputation. But they didn't seem to have the same kind of ethos when it came to the academic side. Because there must have been some like really clever girls, but I can't remember any of them.
well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's all about mindset. I mean, it probably would have all been absolutely capable,
Yeah,
you know, in the right, but in the right environment.
yeah, and I just don't think,
Right.
yeah, I don't think we were given that opportunity, whether through the teaching or,
With a growth mindset, you can do anything you want to do. You've
no,
all got a great brain. You've all got this amazing brain. It does, like Henry Ford said, you're probably right. You can or you can't. You're probably right because it's the way you think, isn't it? Whether
yeah,
you think you can or you think you can't,
you're both right. Yeah,
you're right
yeah,
because that's thinking it is the key.
yeah, absolutely.
You
And
believe.
I look back on my school days now and I think to where it's led me now, I've got a real growth mindset and I'm always learning, always trying to find like, new things to like study or just learn about or explore. And and I don't know whether that is a byproduct of school because I didn't have that at school or whether that's just actually innately who I am. I just was never given that opportunity. Um, but yeah, no, I love learning and every day's a school day.
Yeah, something happens later in life as well, but you just want to learn. Something happened to me, and I was just like, started reading about neuroscience for 3 years, and then I did my psychology degree, my neuroscience masters, and I was still reading, and now I'm doing another course with this coaching course, and it's just like, yeah, you just more, isn't it?
Yeah, you can start absorbing it
Mm.
from like all over the place. Like even like I'm trying to get my kids like because one of my middle son is very into like mindset and things like that, and I'm trying to really encourage that because I'm like that will stand you in such good stead if you can do it from like such a young age. Um,
There's some great books. It's that growth mindset book I've got. So look up here, this one. Um, but you can get all of these on Audible now, can't you? It's that one
yes,
I read years ago. It's about the growth mindset, change the way you think, fulfill your potential.
yeah, because at the
There's
end of
that
the day,
date in the front.
he 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 first came across David Goggins. Have you heard of David
Yeah.
Goggins? He was absolutely obsessed with him, and he said, "Mum, this guy." Like, he's a and I said, let follow guys like that, that you will learn so much from because it's all to do with mindset and about the approach and, you know, having that positive driven, like you can achieve anything. Your brain is a goal achieving machine. And if you give it a goal and you put, daily actions in place, you can achieve anything.
Little steps. Yeah.
It's just all incremental. Um, and so, yeah, I try to teach my kids that now. Um, some of it they pick up on, some of it they laugh at me because they go, "Oh, here goes Mum talking about the universe again," and they'll start like
Ah,
taking the mick out of me. Oh, she's going off on one of her spiritual.
which
Um,
segues nicely onto the spiritual side, doesn't it?
yeah, I'm very spiritual.
About your in connection with your kind of the spirits.
Yeah, so I'm one of three girls,
Yeah.
and my grandma, my mum's mum, moved in with us when I was still at boarding school, actually. And so she lived with us for quite a few years. So I was very close to my grandma, as were my other sisters. And my grandma was a deeply spiritual woman. She would go to spiritualist church. She had like she had a really good social circle.
Mhm.
Lots of them were very spiritual or astrologers or all sorts of like fascinating people.
Mm.
And I remember meeting some of her friends. Gwen, one of them was called, who was the astrologer, and she did my chart for me. I have no idea where it is. I would love to see it now because although I was interested at the time, my knowledge now is I would love to see some of the things that she'd said, but I
When's your
don't.
birthday?
Pardon?
When's your birthday?
21st of June.
All right.
So I'm midsummer. I
Mine's
was
August, 11th August.
Summer's Day.
Yeah, so I'm a Leo. So you're June, you'll be.
Well, right on the cusp, so I'm between Gemini and Cancer. But because of the time I was born, I'm classed as a Cancer, but I am on the cusp of the two. But personality-wise, I'm definitely more Cancer.
Right.
Very nurturing and home, kind of like very focused on the home and like family and that kind of stuff, and making people feel safe and yeah, providing and all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But my grandma, yeah, so she was fascinating, and I learned a lot from her. And I just thought this is what everybody did. And so she taught me that anything that you wanted to ask the universe for, as she used to call it, she'd write it down. Write down what you know. Please help me, blah blah blah, or guide me to make the right
That's
choices.
manifesting, isn't it? That's what they say. You write it down, then it's in the universe, and then it's there. It exists if you write it.
Made it really clear
Okay.
what your cosmic order is,
Yeah.
and she taught me to sleep with it under my pillow and think about it every night before I went to bed. So think about that before you go to sleep, and she said that will like get into your subconscious, and then you'll go to sleep like thinking about these things. So that's what I used to do, and I did that all my kind of teens and my 20s, and into my 30s, and I met my husband kind of late, my late, fairly late. I got married when I was 29. Um,
'Cause I was 39 when I got married. Yeah, later.
30,
39.
yeah. But see, because I remember that the time thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get left on the shelf kind of attitude when I was 29, thinking yeah, I was getting married really late because all my friends had already kind of settled down.
Yes,
But it
I met
was
him when
once
I
I
was
got married,
33. I was like, I was feeling very broody. I wanted a baby. So
yeah,
I was straight in there.
yeah. That's what I wanted. I wanted a husband and kids. That
Yeah.
was kind of like, I was very, that was, I was never really like, oh, I want an amazing career at the time. I was very much, I want to be a wife and a mum, and
No, I didn't
that was kind of
want
what
a career
I
thing.
was.
Yeah. Both, I think.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so I used to do that all the time. I used to do all this like law of attraction and manifest and stuff. I didn't know what that's what it was at the time.
Yeah.
I just did what my grandma said, and it wasn't until I was like in my early 40s, and my sister had rented for a long time, and she'd split up with her partner, and she was having to move again, and she was like, oh, you know, she was back living with my parents, for temporarily. And I said, well, why don't you buy somewhere? And she was like, I can't afford to buy anywhere. Don't be ridiculous, kind of like attitude. And I went, of course you can. If you can afford to rent, you can afford a mortgage. And I said, just do what grandma taught us
It'd be
to do.
cheaper
And
to
she
have a mortgage.
pardon?
It's cheaper, way cheaper to have a mortgage in London than it is to rent.
Really? And so yeah, and I said, just do what grandma taught us to do. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you know, under your pillow. And she looked at me completely blankly, and I explained it to her, and she went, well, she never taught me that. And it was then that I realised my grandma had only ever taught me and not my sisters. So I taught my sister how to do it, and she did it. She wrote it out, and I said, but write it as if it's already happened. Like, write it as if you're really grateful that I now live in my own house and I've got a mortgage, blah, blah. Write it like that. And so she did, and she very quickly ended up, within months, she was able to buy a house. Things kind of synchronicities fell into place, and she now lives in her own home. Yes, she's got a mortgage, but she lives in her own home, in a lovely village in South Devon, a town called Modbury, and she's really, really lucky. But she said, I can't believe that she never taught me. And I said, well, maybe, I don't know why. But my grandma always told me that I was spiritual. And there was a lady who used to run the pub in our local town, in our town. And she used to say to me that, like, when I went into the pub, she goes, who's the lady with you? And I said, what do you mean? And
No.
she said, always come.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. She said, you always, and bearing in mind, I was probably 19, something like that. She said, you always come in with a lady. She's always with you. And I was like, I don't
Who was
know.
it? Who is it?
I said, what
Your
does she look?
grandma.
So, no, because my grandma was still alive at this point.
Oh,
So I was like, well, what does she look like? So I asked lots of questions, and she told me, and I was like, well, it's not my aunt. So my grandma's sister had died, and I thought, well, it's not her. And I'm not entirely sure who it is. My mum and my grandma thought it was one of my grandmas, either her mum or her grandma, from the
the
description.
guardian angel then.
Yeah. yeah, so basically it's like one of my guides. I was being like, this woman was always with me, and the lady that ran the pub said, you've got real psychic ability. She said, I'd love to teach you. And so I was like, okay. So she did. She started teaching me things to do.
Oh, then what do you have to do? You teach me.
I can't really remember at the time. I can't remember. It was things I do now, but I was in a very different place then. So
What
she
kind
said
of things?
so she said, right, when you go, like when you're in, like, you got to be in a quiet space, and like you want to like relax, and like when, like particularly when you're going to bed. And she said, like, lie there and like just like calm everything down, try and like breathe and all this. And then she was like, she said, and then ask questions in your like in your head. And then
Right,
I
yeah. So supposedly you can ask for signs as well.
yes.
But
Well, I started asking for things, or I started asking questions, and I started hearing voices, and it absolutely freaked me out at the time. I was like, I can't, this is too scary, I can't
it's
cope with
just you. It just sounded like a voice in your head. So you speaking
it.
rather
Yeah,
than voice.
it did, but it was stuff I wouldn't say. So although it was like my voice, it wasn't like I could
It
hear
was
something.
coming in and you couldn't.
Yeah, it wasn't like a stranger's voice or like a man's voice. It was not like that. It was like in my head. Um, but it was definitely things that like I didn't understand some of it sometimes. But it scared me a lot. And I remember talking to my grandma about it, and she said, "Oh, Cara," she said, "this is just the beginning." She said, "Don't
What
be
things though? What kind of things though, first?
what that I used to hear."
Yeah.
To be honest, I can't remember back then. I can tell you about some of the stuff like now,
Yeah.
but I can't really remember. I can't remember the exacts of what it was then. But my grandma used to say to me, she used to say, "Oh, just you know, have a notepad by your bed, and every time you hear that, like write down." She said, because some of it won't make any sense at the time, but it
Oh.
will do like later on, or something will happen, and you go, oh, "I remember that." So I started doing that, and I've kind of done that like more so after my grandma died. And then I left my husband. I've always had, I've always had an ability to sense energy and to feel things. I know when things don't feel right. So like things like looking at houses or staying in hotels. I remember the first time me and my husband met in January, and we went away for our first kind of weekend together in the February. We went to a beautiful hotel in the Cotswolds, and we
What
didn't
was it
sleep.
called? So I'm from the Cotswolds.
It was called the Dial House
Okay.
in Bolton on the Water.
Where?
Bolton on the
Oh yeah,
Water.
yeah, that's near to my own. Yeah.
And we stayed there, beautiful place, and we didn't sleep all weekend. Not because it was our first weekend away, but because there was something in our room, and I could not sleep. And I was every time he was about to drop off, I would wake him up. I would go, "You can't go to sleep. Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" He was just like, he was like, "Oh, for God's sake!" We'd only been together for about 6 weeks at this point. And then we had dinner in the hotel on the Saturday night, and we were at the bar, and the staff were talking to us, and they said, "Oh, how's your stay?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, it's all right."
In that
And
room.
and he said, and my husband said, well, he wasn't my husband then, but like he said at the time, he said, "Well, we haven't had a lot of sleep. We've been quite disturbed." And they said, "Oh, where are you? Which room are you in?" I can't remember which one it was now, but whatever number it was, we said the number, and they both just looked at each other. That's all they did. I went, "I told you," and yes, it used, they said, "Oh, what have you experienced?" I said, "Well," I said, "this might sound really random." I said, "But I've told Paul that there's an old man in our room, and he's called Arthur or Albert or something like that. I can't remember exactly which one it was. It was an A." And they both smiled and said that yes, that where our room was used to be old like milking parlours or something that had been converted like over time, and that people often experience either a child, a milking maid, or the farmer in there, and he was called whatever this name was that I had, like either Albert or Arthur, whichever one it was. And I just said to Paul, I said, "I told you I wasn't going nuts." And he then kind of was a bit like, "Okay, that's really odd." But there was lots of that then over like over the years. Um, there would like I'm looking at houses like when we were moving and stuff like that, and I was like, "We can't live here." He said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because we can't. Like it's not got good energy. There's something negative here." And I remember going to look at this. It was absolutely beautiful. It was a beautiful old house. I should have known. I mean, it was
Where in Devon, South Devon.
Devon. Yeah, it was notorious. It was an old mental hospital. It was an asylum at one point,
Mhm.
and it had been converted into these beautiful, like old, like mansion kind of houses, and quite a few of my friends lived up there at the time, and we went to have a look at it, and I just went, oh, this is, I love it. Really high ceilings, beautiful floors, huge rooms. And we were having a look around. I've got this massive smile on my face, and he's like, "Oh, she's already bought it." And we got upstairs, and I was like, "No, that's it." And he went, "What?" I said, "No, we're not living here." He said, "What do you mean?" We walked on this one corridor. I've gone all goosebumps now. We walked on this one corridor, and there was this certain part of this corridor where literally all the hairs on me stood up. I went really cold, and I was like, "Oh, this is uncomfortable." But the house that we were living in at the time, when we first moved in, there were a few experiences in that, and I got a vicar round to come and bless the house, and then nothing happened after that. So my other half of my mind was going, "But the house is really nice. Maybe if I get the vicar round and somebody comes and blesses it, that will be all right." So we went the following day with the children and my mum, and my eldest has always been quite susceptible to the other side, and had I hadn't said anything, he went exactly the same place, and he went, "I don't like it here." On the corridor, he said, "It's really scary. I don't like it here. I don't like it." And he was probably what, 9 maybe at the time. He wasn't very old, and I was just like, and then we had lots of conversations about, I don't think we can buy it because what if you're not in one evening, like, or if I'm on my own? I just would have been terrified permanently. And I reminded him of that weekend in the Dyer house. I said, "You'll never get any sleep because I'll be up."
Yeah,
um,
I grew up in an old rectory, and I was always running down
okay.
corridors because I was scared. But in my room,
Yeah.
there was when it was dark. Well, I had older brothers and sisters. Like I was the youngest of five, but there were steps, and
Yeah.
and they used to kind of scare me and stand outside and pretend to be the Black Knight. But my bedroom, when it was dark, had this orange thing that used to go round like this, just going round and round the room. It was like a luminous orange round kind of donut thing going round and round. And I wasn't sure if it was my eyes having had, and I was always scared in my bed and, I was like,
Understand.
always on edge, and like pounding heart. And if I needed the loo, I would like jump onto the other bed and then jump to the door. And I eventually moved rooms and let my little sister have that room. And
Very
then
kind.
years later, quite recently, I told her about it. And before I told her about it, she said, "What, like an orange donut going around the room?" And I was like, "Oh my God, it was there then. It wasn't my imagination." So I was thinking it might be my eyes or something, and it couldn't be true.
Because you try and
Yeah, so I
rationalise
believe in
it.
all that stuff.
Yeah. See, my son, so my eldest, we lived in a modern house at the time, but um, he was 3 years old, and he used to talk about some like these people that used to come and visit him at night time. And because I'm into it all and like I'm very open to it, and I would ask him lots of questions, and my husband was just like, "This is, don't be ridiculous," all this kind of stuff. And I said, "No, you need to listen to what he's saying," because he was saying stuff. I said, "There's no way he could know this," and he used to call them the magic people. He said, "Well, Mummy, the magic people come and visit me," and I said, "What magic people?" And he knew their names. I can't remember what they were now, but he knew the names of these people. He told me what they did. He told me where they worked. He told me loads of information. And I said, "Why are they magic?" He said, "Oh, Mummy, they don't have any feet." And he said, "So they can just walk through walls and doors and stuff, and they kind of float." And I just looked at Paul and I went, "Right, tell me that like he's like what, 3 years old, like so." Well, yeah, so he's always kind of like been susceptible like me and very open to it. Um, but yeah, the rest of them aren't.
My grandmother used to say, I had a little wart on my hand, and she went, "I charm your wart away." And I
And
was like, "What?"
did it go?
It's the power of the mind. She said, "I charm your wart away," so because I said I had a little kind of wart there. So she just kind of went. "Shh." So she obviously knew that she had some kind of
Yeah.
power, which is just crazy, isn't it? That's the only thing she ever said to me about it.
Really?
But, I've always felt kind of in touch. with that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
same. And I've always known it was kind of there, and I've always picked up on things, and so
Mm.
I've explored it more recently, where just just as part, not like deliberately, but as part of my own kind of healing journey, and I started to do some kind of like work on myself, like healing some of my inner child issues. And I met a lovely lady who she lives in Bali, and she was helping me work through lots of things. And through meeting her, all the things that I've done like all through my adult life, which I just think was me talking to myself in my head. She said, "No, you're like those are mess." And so she got me to actually consciously do these kind of like sessions with her, where like I would like talk and ask questions, and she says, "You're channeling," and I was like. And she said you're really good at it, and she was like, and I would come up with all these things and what I could see and what did it mean, and she would say, she said to me, she said, "You're that what you're doing is channeling," and I was just like, "Really?" Because I know what channeling is, but I never realised that that's what I was doing. I thought that was just me, I suppose I thought that was me just talking to the universe.
Yeah. So I've seen pictures before. So I had a friend and I said that she was going to have two girls. So I just had a picture of her at a carol service for their school kind of
Yeah.
all girls carol service. And that was just a picture I had. And she did have two girls. Um, and then when I met my husband, so, I don't know what this means, but I saw her like an old man in a chair, which I wasn't really happy at. But he's 51. He's younger than me, but he does seem a bit older than me for some reason. He's like a bit of an old man.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know
funny.
what that means. But yes, it's pictures, isn't it? Sometimes you see, do you
Yeah,
see pictures?
sometimes it's really visual. I'm quite auditory, so I'll hear a lot of stuff. I do loads of like I'll get lots of my dreams are off the scale. Like
Right.
I dream every night. Um, my partner says to me, he says, "No wonder you're permanently exhausted." He said, "You don't ever stop, even when you're asleep." He said, like your brain, you're visiting here, there, and everywhere, and like having all these kind of like
Amazing dreams.
yeah.
I
And
have quite good dreams.
I feel like I travel at night time, so I don't just dream. I actually go like It's like I'm like ancestrally traveling, and it was really, we had a really interesting thing that happened only like a couple of months ago, where I was in that like sleep just before you wake up, and
Hypnagogue.
pardon?
Hypnagogue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was in that period, and theta is it they call it, and I started talking. I was asleep, and I have no recollection of this. And he was in bed, and he was awake, and he started writing on his phone, making notes of all the things I was saying, and it went on for ages. And then I woke up, and I just said, "Oh my god!" I said, "I've just had the weirdest dream." He went, "Yeah, I know." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, I took notes." I said, "Did you?" I said, "That's really interesting. Tell me what you've got." And we kind of like I told him mine, and he told me what he'd got, and we kind of like. What is so bizarre is that in my head, I had one dream that then moved on to another dream. But the way he's written it down, they are both happening at the same time. So when I was like asleep, because I said to him, I said, "Oh no, I had this dream, and it was about Rob was in the street, so somebody we know." And I was going through what like had happened, and I said, "No," and then I ended up in like a living room with my mum and some family, and but in his chronological like messaging of what had happened, it was like a bit of this dream happened, and then I mentioned something that was going on in this one, but then I was in this one, and he said the way I like was saying it, it was like those two dreams were happening at exactly the same time. Now, I can't explain that because that's not how it was in my head. Like
Mm.
I remember the dreams, and that's not that. But to him, they were literally both like simultaneous. So I want to explore that more because I find that quite fascinating. So actually, I could be dreaming about multiple things at the same time, but my brain shows it to me, maybe in a way I can understand,
Yeah.
and just looks like it, to me it delivers it one at a time, but actually that's all happening at the same time, and I can remember it, but I'm not developed enough possibly um,
Mhm.
to be able to like read it as if it's all happening at once.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's something I
But I
want
think
to.
the spirit as well is supposed to kind of leave the body and go and
Well,
explore
I can
and
feel
go
that.
off
Yeah, I
and then
feel
come
that.
back. You
Like
can.
like when I go to sleep, like I know, like I sometimes I see myself in the bed. I feel me leave. I can feel me. That's what I call
Associate.
like traveling. So I say to like Tim, my partner, and I'll go, I've been to so and so, and I can, and I, it's like going through timeline, different timelines of my own life that are happening on other planes at the same time, and this is why he says like, no wonder you're always tired because even when I'm asleep, I'm not asleep because I'm off doing like all sorts of stuff in like my other universes or timelines or whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it.
it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And but now I consciously practice it a lot more. So like I things that I want to call into my life, I will write down and I'll kind of like journal on them, and then
Mhm.
I will really visualize like in every detail of
So
exactly.
you're trying to manifest this amazing house that you've visualized.
So yeah,
So
so
that should happen. How long do you think that'll take to surf it?
no idea. And I put it out there and I don't put any kind of time scale on it. But I just say, I just kind of like believe it all in divine
No,
timing.
it's going to happen.
I know it's going to happen. Yeah. I just, the house I live in now, like sometimes you
That's
don't
it.
see it
Mm.
in the moment, but I've done like vision boards and done this kind of like manifesting stuff for a long time. And I look at some of my vision boards from like years ago and I'll pull them out every now and then. I go, oh my God, that happened. Or, oh my God,
Never done
that,
a vision
because you
board.
forget about some of the things. And I look at my house that I live in now and I think, I remember when I manifested that. And I remember consciously walking around that house that I had in my head. Um, the house I live in now doesn't look exactly like it, but there's a lot of like. So I wanted a three-story house, and I had like an open plan kitchen diner and a separate living room, and then it had like 5 or 6 bedrooms, and then the master bedroom had like it had a separate dressing room and an ensuite, and then the master bedroom, and that I didn't have. I lived in a three-bed semi-detached at the time
Mhm.
after leaving my husband, and this was the house that I was like kind of manifesting, and that's what we live in now. And I look at it and I go, this is almost apart from apart from the housekeeper,
Ah, you wanted a housekeeper.
a housekeeper in this dream who would cook really healthy meals. I'm still working on that one. um, Other than that, the house like is so similar to what I manifested. It
Mhm.
doesn't look exactly how I visualized it, but it's got all of those components. It's got 6 bedrooms, and it's got the dressing room and the ensuite, and it's got the lovely open plan kitchen diner. All of those things that with the doors leading out into the garden. All those things that I wanted, it's got.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, so now I'm working on my next level house, um, and I start by it kind of evolves over like a few nights to start with. So I start by like going in, like visualizing like what it looks like, and then gradually I'll see more of the house. So I'll actually walk around it, and I visualize every detail, like this, what it smells like, what I can hear, what I can see, how it's decorated, where the furniture is, what room leads into what room.
What it feels like as well.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah,
All of it.
absolutely. And I
Because I've always visualized a holiday house in Ibiza, like a little villa with a pool. I've
yeah,
always wanted it. So I'm going to start getting a bit more detail on that.
I find
Trying
that
to manifest that because that is like my dream. Although my husband doesn't like the sun, so he wants somewhere
yeah, my past.
where I want to ski.
Funnily enough, these are the floor plans.
All right.
Um, so that's upstairs. This is like the, so I don't know if you can see that. This is a floor plan of like the downstairs.
Oh, nice. Wow.
You walk in,
That's
and
detailed.
there's a, like a like a guest suite downstairs, and then this is like all open plan, but it's 2 story. It's like a vaulted
Oh, nice.
room, and it's got
Yeah.
bifold doors that open out onto a patio, and it overlooks like countryside. And I've got land, and I've got like so on my land I've got 3 like cabins, and I even know the names of them. Each cabin is named something, and I know like all of it, like every detail, and I can
I
smell
wonder if it
camphor.
actually exists.
I don't know.
Or you haven't
I
been
don't
built
know.
yet.
I don't know whether, because I wonder that sometimes. Am I like remembering something from a previous life that I've had, or is it
Tuning
something that?
into something that's, there
Yeah,
already.
yeah. I don't know,
Mm.
but I do go into like very like lots of detail about exactly what it looks like, and what it feels like, what it smells like, how I feel living in it,
Mhm.
how calm I am, and like silly little things like I'm sat on the sofa and I'm like kind of like doing all of this, like banging on the sofa, like really excited about like look what I've managed to like
This is
achieve.
the manifest thing. It is excitement, isn't it? It's a
Yeah,
certain
it's the feelings,
frequency which of excitement.
and then and just the calm of like looking out onto like where I live and the gardens and stuff, and just how that really gives you a like a just a calm and a peace, and like standing there with my coffee, and just
If I always imagine a coffee,
I
so
only started drinking coffee last year. I mean, I don't even know why I do that. Like, as in, always see me with a
not
coffee. I think it's that
rather than a glass of wine or something like that. I used to do
I do
glass
like
of wine. Now I do
quite
coffee.
both.
Ah!
But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working towards now.
Mhm.
And like I have like in there, I have like my office is put in the house, and I've got my screens, and I visualize what I'm like working on, and all of those kind of aspects. So it's I do go into a lot of detail, and I feel like it's not very far away. So I can't tell you exactly like, oh yeah, this is going to be within like this particular, but I feel like it's within the next few years. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is like 10 or 15 years down the line. It doesn't feel like that long away. And if I think of the timeline of when I first started manifesting the house I'm in now, that took me 2.5 years before I was in that, from like the very beginning of thinking about it and manifesting it.
Mhm.
And I don't think this is very far away.
It's exciting.
It is exciting, and I think that is that feeling as well of. I think sometimes on the days where things are difficult, or you're having a bad day, or you're feeling demotivated, or things aren't working out, and I kind of go back into thinking about things like that, because that lifts your frequency, and then I get back into that higher frequency of like, this is just focus on where you're going, what you so far achieved, and it gets me back into that kind of excited feeling that sometimes you don't have in daily life all the time.
Mhm.
And so I'll think, well, I'll utilize my vision of where I'm going and what I am going to achieve to raise that
Love it.
vibration and bring me into alignment with where I'm going.
I love all that stuff. I keep seeing it on Instagram, keeps popping up. I've got the tarot card people popping
Yeah,
up. They keep liking those. They keep
I think
giving
also
me a
when you
daily kind of insight.
yeah, and all these kind of synchronicities kind of start like coming in as well when you're things that you either want to call in or you're suddenly interested in, and then all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere, and it's just like all these like little messages that you get from completely unrelated fields. That's how I ended
How
up.
do you know when a spirit is around, or do you call by thinking of someone who's died? Does that call the spirit up, or would the spirit be there anyway?
Well,
And then
I can only kind of tell you from like my experience how I do it. So, um, I talk to like my grandma and my guides all the time, and they give me kind of like they answer lots of kind of questions, um,
what kind of
and then
questions do you ask?
oh my God, I ask all sorts of things. So I'll ask things like, so sometimes I see like, so sometimes I'll go into a meditative state and I'll see things that I don't know why I'm seeing it. Like, so like recently I saw a jellyfish. like the top of a jellyfish, and like you could see it like pulsing, like like the way it moves. And
Yeah.
I said, I don't tell me what this means. What are you trying to show me? And they said it was about vibration and frequency. You need to concentrate on your vibration and frequency, and you need to raise your frequency. So things like, so I ask now, and then anything that I see or anything they say that I don't understand, I ask them to elaborate, tell me what that means, what do I need to do, or if like I've come up with an idea, I'll ask, like, is that, I'm thinking of doing, is that a good idea? And I'll get kind of feedback. So, and it's a lot more conscious now, whereas I must say in the past I thought, well, maybe I'm just talking to myself. Whereas I get stuff that I don't understand now, um, which so I did this. I did a meditation recently where it had taken me kind of down a path, and I'd come out into a beautiful meadow, and the it was all like beautiful, like wildflowers in the meadow. There's this gorgeous tree on like the hill, and there was a bench underneath, and there was somebody sitting on the bench. And I walked up to the bench and I went to sit with this person, and I thought it was going to be my grandma. So I started like talking to this person, and I said, "Oh," because it wasn't my grandma, and I was like, "Oh, who are you?" And she told me she was called Marion, I think she was called. And I said, "And who are you?" And she said, "Oh, I'm you from a previous life." And then so she started telling me things that I needed to concentrate on. And then the weirdest thing happened is we were looking out over these like beautiful fields that like kind of drop off, and then like you can see more of the view, and it had like mountains and waterfalls and like beautiful lush green, and those like little villages down in the like valley. And then you kind of like, I was just taking in the whole like vision, and then it was like a movie where you've got like the scene at the bottom, and then all of a sudden it cuts off, and then it was all black. The top half was all black, and like like all stars and like universe and stuff. And then this figure, this, I don't even know if it's a figure. This presence came in to this black kind of area and introduced themselves and said, "We are helping. We're helping you from the other side. We're helping guide you to your next. We're helping guide you to your soul purpose and your next level." And so I was asking them questions, and I was like, "Who are you?" And they said, "We want to use you to like give messages and spread the word and tell people certain things." And they said they were called Arcatron, and that they were some kind of species, or I don't know, whatever, form from some other universe, and they were called Arcatron. Well, I googled Arcatron because this all happens like in my head, and then often afterwards I have to make notes because otherwise I forget. So when I come out, my notes on my phone are full of like things that have happened and things that I've experienced or answers to stuff, because I don't always remember the details later on, because I'm not really in. It's really hard to explain.
Duck is supposed to be kind of half animal, half human, that we're kind of stuck here or something. But there'll be human spirits, not kind of demons, will it?
I've never
And that
experienced.
sounds a bit
Yeah, I've only ever experienced.
good spirits.
Yeah, I've never experienced anything negative. Um, but I do like, I will protect myself. So like even when I'm going into a meditation, I
Mhm.
will visualize me in like a bit like a bubble. And I'll ask for protection of like any, keep me safe and like protect me from any negative energies.
Yeah,
So
because demons can try and take steal your spirit.
yeah, and I will I will.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got ten. My laptop's going to die. Um, yeah, so I've got. Yeah, so I do protect myself kind of consciously when I go in.
With a light, kind of.
Yeah, so like, yeah,
Mhm.
I've got this like bubble kind of light that goes round my whole body, and then I've got a light that comes down like into my crown, and then I will like ground myself. So I'll visualize like roots growing out of my body or my feet into like the center of the earth and stuff like that. So I do all of that
Rooted.
before I even start,
Yeah, right.
so that I'm kind of protected anyways. And I've never ever experienced anything negative. before. So that's good.
So, can we try you out then?
You can have
Can
a
you
go.
do it over Zoom?
I've only
No
ever
spirits here. Can you try and get in touch with some of my, I
I've
don't
never
know.
done it for somebody else. I've basically what I've tended to do is
Yeah.
if I kind of concentrate, I'll get messages and I can just say what they are, but I don't know whether they're aimed at you or whether it's me because I've only ever done this for myself. I've never done it for anybody else. But I can
So I've
definitely.
got a grandmother, grandfather, a stepmother, an aunt, two aunts actually, and an uncle that have died. And that's it.
It's quite a bit.
There's quite a lot of them. Well, there's, six. But obviously, my granny was the one I was close to. My stepmother, um, grandpa.
Okay.
Ah, the
Yeah.
baby. But
Well,
when you think of them, aren't they supposed to then
I think
possibly
I
appear?
I can only speak from my experience because
Mhm.
I've never done it for anybody else. So I can only I've only ever done it for me. So I can only give it you from how I've done it for myself in the past. And I don't know whether it will then it might come across differently if I'm trying to do it for somebody else, or it might not work. I don't know. Let's have a go. I'll see. I'll